Hi, everyone. My name is Megan, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for ACMA's Building Pathways. This will be our first career empowerment webinar made especially for students and young professionals in a time where many of us feel very uncertain. So we hope that by the end of the hour, you'll have most, if not all, of your career journey questions answered by our amazing guest panelists today.
Awesome. And hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine. I'll just be going over our agenda really quick. First, we'll spend around 5 to 10 minutes getting to know our panel. Then we'll take some time to speak to each panelist about their journeys, advice, and experience. And the latter half of our event will be a Q&A session where all of you will be welcome to share your questions through the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen. And you can submit your questions throughout the event, but we won't get to answer them until after half. And so just a little bit about myself. I'm Jasmine Nauta. I graduated from UC San Diego this past June with a major in communication and business. I spent all of my 3 years in event planning, social media, and digital communications for various organizations, including the Asian Student Pacific Islander Alliance and the Lab Dance community. I continued this line of work as Asian Media Alliance's digital marketing assistant.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan Shimizu, and I also graduated from UC San Diego this past June with a major in communication and a minor in writing and literature. And I now work with ACMA on their show Asian Voices, and I'm an assistant teacher for their Take One internship program. And I'm really passionate about increasing Asian and minority representation in the media, and I hope to also help others find a medium to tell their stories. And yeah, that's everything about me. And now I'm going to go ahead and we will begin our panelist introductions. So first, we'd like to introduce Sun Nguyen, the Senior Lead Campus Recruiter at LinkedIn. Sun, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your work?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everybody. Again, I'm Sun. I'm currently at LinkedIn right now, but I have been really kind of judging people my entire career. It's funny that I put it that way, right? But you know, I grew up an hour and a half north of Seattle, so almost to Canada, way up there, as the first son of Vietnamese refugees. My parents came to the U.S. In the late '70s after the war, and born and raised out there, and then just kept on going farther and farther east. Obviously studied consulting in college, and then I thought I was actually going to be a strategy consultant in Chicago with McKinsey. I came about this close to driving out there and calling it good forever, but right before graduation, I had in a student newspaper that I was looking for admissions counselors, and that really changed the course of my entire career. So I worked in college admissions for a couple of years, ended up making it 6, and then going to grad school in New York City, and then thought I was going to stay in branding, but actually went back into kind of recruiting, HR at Target, and then did the MBA admissions thing while following my wife around during her anesthesiologist training. And then that led us to the West Coast, where I'm at LinkedIn right now, where I'm recruiting for sales trainees, MBAs, and I'm also now taking on the role of software engineering intern recruiter as well. So I'm happy to talk about any of those things and my career as an Asian American, as well as a recruiter from both college admissions and corporate.
Awesome. Next, I'd like to introduce Cena Hodgeson, a career coach and brand marketer. Cena, if you'd like to speak a little about your experience and your journey.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Cena Hodgeson. I am a career coach, and I am also a brand marketer for a local company here in San Diego. I recently graduated from UC San Diego as well this past June with a degree in communications as well. And let's see, where shall I start? My journey is really interesting to me. I think we all have really unique, interesting journeys that take us through life and bring us to where we are now. And it's so amazing to hear everyone's background and journey. So both of my parents immigrated to the US over 35 years ago from Iran. So I'm first generation American here, and first generation college grad in my family. So I have a background in PR and marketing. That's what my goal was getting out of UC San Diego, graduating. I was ramping up to work at a PR agency somewhere in Southern California, and I had 2 internships under my belt, so that was really helpful. But unfortunately, due to COVID, the agencies experienced hiring freezes, and there was a lot of confusion with hiring and hiring entry-level people as well. So it was a little tricky for me to get my foot in the door after graduating. So that's when I decided to create my own business, and I started doing career coaching on the side just to stay busy and continue helping the community and students and young people, just because while I was a student at UCSD, I really loved volunteering and mentoring through the Undergraduate Communication Society, where I was the president. I was also a part of the Triton LinkedIn group, which is a new partnership with LinkedIn. So a lot of great opportunities as a student to help others. So that's where I translated that experience into a business now. And another interesting thing I do is, as a brand marketing coordinator, I actually just got this promotion this week. It's a brand new promotion I got because I started out as a front desk coordinator at a med spa. And this is going to come up in my answer later on in the panel, but basically I pivoted my whole strategy and took this front desk job just to pay my bills and support myself financially. And then I was able to communicate and strategize within the first 3 months at the front desk, and then I worked my way up into corporate. So that's sort of my journey in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Congratulations on your promotion, first of all. And I love how you've really built your way up in your career. So thank you.
Thank you.
Finally, we have Rachel Mckenna, a content creator and streamer.
Thank you, Megan. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on the panel this evening. So long story short, I just graduated from USC back in December. I got my degree in business administration with emphases in marketing and entrepreneurship. And it did take me a couple of months to find a position right after school. And then I actually was made a gaming company in Santa Monica, which I was super excited about because I've always been passionate about gaming. I mean, I never knew that I wanted to go into it for a career. I didn't even realize that that was an option for me since I was on the marketing and creative side of things. I thought it was always very development heavy, but I was offered a job, and then kind of like Cena, that position was rescinded due to COVID implications, and I ended up moving back to San Diego, where I'm from. And I was at home, and I didn't really know what to do next because it was kind of my big plan to graduate from college and get a job and kind of move forward and begin my career. And when that kind of fell apart and right in front of me, I wasn't sure what to do, and I was at home, and then I came across the live streaming app called Mixer, which actually doesn't exist anymore. So I'm currently on Twitch, but Mixer is what catalyzed my journey, I guess, in streaming and now content creation. So I have become a full-time content creator, and I have been putting all of my time into learning the ins and outs of social media marketing, brand management, what I can do to grow my channel, and the like.
Thank you, Rachel. I love how innovative you were in a time where it kind of felt kind of hopeless and unsure of yourself, but I love how you kind of made the best of it and you're now able to follow your passions. So thank you for that.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Mckenna. I'm a recent USC Business School graduate turned content creator. You might be wondering, how did this happen? Well, ever since I was a kid, I've had a passion for all things gaming. So, naturally, I decided to pursue an initial post-grad opportunity at a gaming company in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, those plans suddenly disappeared, along with my dream job offer. At first, I found myself with no plans and no idea what to do next. But then I came across something that shifted my mindset.
Hey, I've got an idea. I've got an idea. Yeah. I've got an idea. I got a different idea. That's it. Wait a minute. No. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
And maybe
Just going off of Rachel's video and your experience and how you had to kind of make your own way. Has this experience in any way like changed your perspective on your own capabilities, like from searching a traditional job and title and role to creating like, let's say, your own pathway, your own career journey, as opposed to like a traditional one going out of school?
Absolutely. So I've always been a very big planner. I've always kind of liked to have my ducks in a row and have everything scheduled and laid out. And I'm very particular about certain things. And so after my original position was rescinded, I actually spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. I took a LinkedIn like masterclass course on doing everything I could to optimize my profile and be appealing to recruiters. And I was reaching out to alumni from my school, and I was kind of doing everything that I thought I should be doing in this time. And I was kind of like just throwing resumes and throwing applications, applying to like 10 jobs a day. I was just really spending all my time doing that. And I don't know if it was the timing of everything, or I was just so kind of set on like getting a position quickly that I wasn't taking the proper time to apply to things that I thought I was genuinely a good match for, but I wasn't hearing back, and it was just going super poorly. So after about a month of doing that, back in April or May, I guess, I was getting really frustrated and fed up, and I was kind of down and really just confused as to where I should go. Again, I had this like grand plan, I guess, of what I thought I was going to be doing now, and that just went out the window. And then I kind of rediscovered gaming at home because I had more time. And as I kind of spent more time in the gaming space and learned more about how the community had developed and how up and coming the entire gaming industry is on the whole, that's where streaming came in. And I kind of had, when I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could do this. I mean, you have to be on camera, you have to be communicating, watching the game, playing the game well enough that it's interesting to watch the person playing it. So there's all these different things that I was really overwhelmed by at first. But then I thought, you know what, instead of seeing this from like, oh my gosh, no way I could do that, it's like, why can't I do that? Or why not at least try? I mean, these are unprecedented times, so why not do something unprecedented?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think it's really great that you took an innovative pathway. Did you feel like when you were kind of starting out that you had to pave your own way in the industry, or are there any big creators or kind of like online classes I know you talked about, or resources that you look for to find guidance?
So it's definitely been tooth and nail every step of the way, like for every viewer, follower, and that's still how it is right now. I haven't like made a viral video or anything that's absolutely propelled my growth, but there has been a lot of iterative steps, I guess, I've taken in terms of like first learning the tech side of things. I mean, I ended up building a gaming PC, which was like huge because I, like a few weeks ago, I didn't know the difference between a graphics card and like a CPU or something. I didn't know any of that. So a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of podcasts. I've been trying to balance my time between personal development, because I think in streaming and content creation, I mean, a majority of like what you're selling is yourself in a way. I mean, I'm the brand, I'm the product. Like as you saw, my channel's Miss Mckenna, so like that's me, and I have to figure out how to optimize myself to kind of fit the brand expectations and everything. So it's a big balance between learning the like tangible steps in social media, a lot of things that I didn't learn in school. Actually, I learned very corporate heavy, like business techniques, and all of this is new, innovative, using like very like new social media strategies. So finding balance between everything has been a challenge, but it's been really exciting.
Thank you for that. Now, I have a question for you, Cena. So I know you kind of talked about when you started your journey as a career coach, but why did you choose career coaching? And is there any advice or wisdom that you wish someone would have given you earlier that you had to learn for yourself?
Definitely. Great question. So my answer to the first part of the question is that basically the origin story of my career coaching business started years ago when I transferred from my community college in the Bay Area to UC San Diego. And I really immersed myself in the campus and in the community. I really wanted to meet as many people as I can and just apply myself and do the most within the 2 years that I had. So, and I did do that, which was really amazing. It was really a great experience. So what happened was during those 2 years, I was really finding my way as a mentor and helping peers from a mentor's standpoint, where I felt that I had a lot of personal experience in the career, like I guess the career realm in terms of professional, having a professional background and just having various jobs, because ever since I was 16, I started working. And when I was in high school, I would have 2 or 3 or 4 jobs at a time sometimes, and I would work full-time while being a full-time student. But for me, it was just out of the passion of love of working and people. So for me, I've always loved working. I'm a little bit of a workaholic, so I really just like staying busy. So for that reason, I think from 16 up until about 2 years ago, I've been able to foster so much information, wisdom, and personal experience that translated into all of these opportunities that I had. And I thought about it and I was like, if I'm able to do that for myself and I'm helping students on campus, whether it was for Triton LinkedIn group or the Undergraduate Communication Society, I just felt like it was really rewarding to offer my wisdom and just personal experience to students and show them the strategies and techniques that I fostered and I used myself to help them get to where they want to be and set them up for success. Because there's just so much confusion, like we've been saying, around job market and skills. And like Rachel was saying in her story, sometimes you really just need to pivot and adjust and do something you probably didn't think you would do before. But the beauty in that is once you know what you're good at, or if you take those skills tests online, those strength tests, or just talk to someone like me, or just talk it out with someone, you'll be able to see what your hidden talents are and just be able to utilize all of that information and just get on some sort of path that aligns with what your previous plan was. So for me, all of that information and all those tips, I feel like are super valuable. So I just want to offer that to people, especially students and young people, recent grads, just like most of us on this call. So I just want everyone to know, like, you're not alone. We're all in a similar situation. So that's why I really wanted to be able to offer this service and help people that way.
Yeah. So yeah, you talked about earlier how you went from being a front desk representative to working as a brand marketer. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you made your way there, or like how you did talk it out with people about what you wanted to do? Because I know sometimes we find ourselves in a position where we know somebody who has a type of connection to what we want to do. So how do you suggest we brought it up in the way like you did?
So there are a few things there. For me, communication is number one. It's funny because I studied communication, but I literally love communication in all aspects of what it is. So for me, that's been like my personal skill and trait where I've been able to effectively communicate and find these opportunities through conversation. So for this position that I got into, basically I was talking to a friend who was working at the med spa that I was originally working at 3 months ago. And she mentioned that I told her that I was looking for a job, and I was, like Rachel, I was spending probably a month or over a month applying for various PR jobs, and I was still looking for that dream job that I wanted out of college. And some companies were interviewing me, some had offers, but then they all had to take them back. So anyway, I was like, if you have a job at opening at the med spa, I'm happy to hop on over there. Like, if there's anything, I just need to pay my bills. So she mentioned that they were looking for a front desk coordinator, and this was during COVID, so it was a little hectic at their med spa, as you can imagine, since it's a physical service, medical service. So I was there. I did the interview on the phone one day, and it seemed like it was a good match, and they had me come in to shadow for 2 hours, and I stayed for about 3, and I really just talked to everyone, all of the managers and employees, and just really engaged and just made sure I can get a lot of information and ask questions, because whenever you ask questions, it just shows that you're interested, and it also gets you some information. So since I didn't get an official job offer yet, I was shadowing, I asked questions, and then I actually got offered the job on the spot by the GM of the company, and I told them I could work right away. So I started working for them the next day at the front desk. And from there, I told them at the interview and during the onboarding process that I was like, you know, I'm looking to do this part-time as of now and see if I can land my dream PR job part-time as well. Because I knew at the time that there were some PR agencies who were looking to hire part-time employees. So I thought that would be a great combination where I'm working 2 jobs, both part-time, where I can do PR and I can do this on the side. And I had my career coaching as well. So like I said, I really like to stay busy.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened then was, because I told them that, I was like, I told them I was transparent about my goals, and they were very understanding about that. So I really communicated that to them. Along the way, within the span of these past 3 months, I fostered relationships with the general manager and my direct manager. And I also made some point of contacts with our marketing team and our sister company. So I really just told them about my interests and my background. And I told them the story that I'm telling you all, because storytelling is really powerful. So I really just wanted them to know what I was going through and what brought me to their company. So once I basically shared all that information, I was very transparent and just very open to having conversations with their employees. A lot of them were like, oh, we're going to keep an eye out for you if something opens up. And once they sort of looked at my resume and figured out where I can fit in to their marketing team, that's when the marketing director offered me the promotion to do brand marketing for them. So it was a really great segue for me. I felt like from the beginning of the process until now, I really communicated, I was transparent, and I was very curious and just open. So just keeping all of that in mind helped me get to where I wanted to be in terms of my career goals.
Okay. So I'm getting a lot of like just putting yourself out there, letting people know what you want to do, right?
Exactly. Just not being afraid to ask as well, because that's a reason why they knew what my interests were. I asked them if they had an opportunity for me, and I asked them questions, just basically asking for, not necessarily asking for a job in a direct way, but asking for an opportunity or asking for a way to show yourself. Even for people who are listening, even if it's asking to help or volunteer on a project, or building out your portfolio that way, that's another really great way to get your foot in the door and get those promotions and just show people what you have. Because once you show them that you're interested and that you want it, then usually I feel like they're going to work on getting you what you want. So that was definitely really helpful.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like that's something a lot of people want to hear is like, how do we get there? Who do we talk to? Like, I'm afraid. So thank you. So we'll go ahead and move on to Sun. We have a couple questions for you. So you spoke a little bit about your background and how your parents moved here to where you were born. Can you tell us a little bit about how your background impacted like your career pathway and how it made you feel when you decided to do like business as opposed to what traditionally Asian American families encourage their children to do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You know, I think like growing up, people always just kind of looked at me and kind of where I came from and, you know, what I was good at. And they just, you know, thought I was going to be a lawyer or a strategy consultant. And so, you know, honestly, when I try to tell my parents what an admissions counselor does or what a corporate recruiter does, they didn't really understand. You know, like even though, you know, I could kind of explain it in Vietnamese to them, they just still were like, okay, cool, whatever, right? I think for me, what's really honestly worked is I tend to double down on my strengths. So I don't necessarily worry so much about what other people's vision of success is. I really try to tell people, you know, within reason, you know, do what you want to do, but really emphasize what you're good at. You know, I think especially within the immigrant community or, you know, even in the Asian community, there's a lot of pressure to be a lot of pressure to like not show any weaknesses. And so we spend so much time trying to shore up the things that we're not good at that sometimes we don't actually emphasize enough the things that we really do best. And I think the things we do best kind of make our work even better. And so for me, it was a combination of luck and just kind of being prepared at all times. And just really, I think even taking a step back further, you know, to be honest, I actually kind of overcompensated at times, you know, being, you know, a short Asian American dude, you know, I kind of overcompensated with like, you know, bringing in a lot of ego, trying to be pretty flashy, you know, like turning on the charm extra. And, you know, instead of playing soccer or golf, I played football and basketball in high school, you know, right? So I try to emphasize that all-Americanness. And I didn't really truly find my identity until college. And I really, you know, nowadays, I do think representation matters.
Yeah. So you did talk about like where you're going. So there's this term that's going around a lot, the bamboo ceiling, or the inability for like professional Asian American people in a workplace to reach managerial or executive positions. Were there any times you felt unqualified or limited because of who you are? I know you're the senior LinkedIn recruiter, but yeah.
You know, so I want to begin by saying I think it's a very real thing. I have been extremely lucky in my life that I don't know that I've necessarily been a victim of it or necessarily have felt it. You know, again, I think I've been very, very privileged, you know, even coming from a background where I am first generation born in the US and first generation college, that I've found my way to places, you know, like a Notre Dame or, you know, a USC, like fight on, right, Rachel? You know, then to Columbia for graduate school and, you know, having worked at like Target and then now here at LinkedIn. But I do see it, you know, I mean, I've been to primarily like non-diverse, non-Asian institutions and companies until LinkedIn. Like now that I'm here in the Bay Area, it's really the first time where I've seen a lot of Asians around me. And I think going from working in higher education where you don't see a lot of Asian American or even Asian American men, to be completely transparent, in the HR space, it has been a little bit eye-opening. You know, what I've seen here in the Bay is that we have a lot of younger entry-level Asian Americans in tech, but as you continue to go up and higher, you don't see that in the leadership, and that extends even more so if you look at, you know, the Hispanic Latinx community or even African American community. And what I typically say to that is, you know, the big key is finding the right people to ask for help, and you know, don't make yourself a martyr. So like, you know, you don't owe anything to anybody. So if you see an opportunity for a promotion or for a raise, go and take it. You know, like don't feel like you need to stick around at some place just because like, oh, I owe this place this or I owe this place that. I mean, yeah, care about your team, but you know, go where you want and go where you think you're needed.
Thank you.
So, Sun, kind of building off of that, do you have any advice for Asian Americans or just minorities that are maybe in college right now or just graduating that are first or second generation in the US? Any advice for how they should begin navigating the job search?
Yeah, you know, I can get to some LinkedIn resume tips in a second, you know, or maybe I can do that now. But I think when reaching out, especially on platforms like LinkedIn, I think the first thing is just to show your humanity. You know, most of us are on LinkedIn or as recruiters want to help, you know, and obviously there's differences between an internal recruiter and like a headhunter or you know, a paid career coach. So I would say, you know, in your outreach with people, help them help you, right? Like always give a reason. If you make a LinkedIn connection request, try to drop a sentence or two in there and just say why you're reaching out. I would say one thing that's really a big deal right now is, look, we know it's hard out there, you know, whether you're a graduating college senior or you're a junior looking for an internship or you've recently graduated. I think one of the biggest faux pas and mistakes that's not going to get a response is if you reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, this is my resume, this is my background, where do you think I fit? That's probably one of the biggest mistakes you can do to a recruiter right now. If you see a job posted and you're not sure what's linked to your job requisition, that blind reach out by saying, hey, find me a job, that may not be what you're trying to get across, but that's what it's going to feel like to a recruiter. And each of these recruiters at different companies have their own roles they're going to fill. So if you go out there and say, hey, be my career coach or mentor without actually having a specific ask is is not really going to get an answer. So if you do find a job at a company and a recruiter linked, write to them, tell them why you want to be at that company and a couple quick blurbs about, why you want to fit in that position, why you'd be a great fit. But just really, really be careful not to be like, hey, find me a job. Where do you think I could go?
Thank you. I think that's great advice. I feel like it's not very talked about how young professionals or just people looking for a job should reach out to recruiters and career coaches. Like, we know that they're out there, obviously, but there's not much advice on how to make that connection. So thank you for that advice. Now I think we are going to move on to some more practical career advice. So I know, Sun, like once we get to you, you can talk more about LinkedIn tips. So yeah, we'll just start with Rachel. I have a question for you. So as a creator and online personality, how do you think that social media experience can be advantageous to someone who is pursuing a career in media?
So I think that social media kind of gets a bad rap on the superficial side of it. I mean, there are all of the negative and kind of stereotypical assumptions that you can make about it. But once you dive deeper and you look at it as a tool instead of just a social platform, I think that there's so much that you can do for yourself. And actually, in terms of like TikTok specifically, I've learned a lot of practical, like pragmatic tips that I can implement on my page. I've learned things about whether, like, if hashtags should go in like the description of your image, or if they should go in the comments, things that you wouldn't really think about, but utilizing it as an information platform and a way to connect with others through like the pursuit of knowledge. I think it can be super helpful because you can connect with like-minded individuals, learn more outside of yourself, and maybe even create a brand page. I mean, I think you can do it no matter what background you have, whether you're a creative person or not. I think it's really interesting. I'm sure Sun knows a bit more about this, but like to recruiters to see you show something in a different light instead of like, here's my resume. It's like, here's my resume and you can look at my brand, or here's my projects that I've done before, and put it in a very creative way. I think it makes you stand out if you're able to utilize it in kind of an informational way to connect with others and then create something of your own to share.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of when you were starting out your journey, like in social media and with streaming, do you feel like you had to overcome any personal barriers, like maybe in confidence? I know like a lot of people struggle with like having the confidence to speak to a camera, put yourself out there. And do you have any tips for someone who is just starting out?
I think one of the biggest things that I personally faced, and what I've heard others face, like people that come into my chat or other streamers that I've connected with, is just getting started, like taking the leap and buying the webcam, or just doing like these little insignificant things that are so daunting when you think about it. It's like, oh, if I get a webcam, then that means I have to hook it up. And if I have to hook it up, that means that I'll have to go live at some point and I'll have to put myself out there and talk to people. And it's that fear of what could happen that I think that was what was holding me back. It was like that combined with, oh my gosh, this is a super impractical like route for me to take, and this is nothing that I expected myself to be doing. So it was a huge leap of faith in terms of like, do I have like the tools right now? I know I can learn, but do I have enough within me at this point? And the answer is, oh yeah, always yes. Like no matter what you want to do, I think it's important that people remember that like you have everything that you need within you now, and just starting is probably one of the hardest things to do.
So just kind of going off of that, like, was there anything that you wish you knew about like streaming or content creation, or like how this would impact you later that you wish you knew?
So in terms of like long-term consequences or results, I can't really speak to that yet because I've only been in this for a couple of months. So you'll have to ask me that again, like a year or something. But I think that there are things that like I don't know. I mean, I think that it's important to be able to just like be confident in yourself and take it one day at a time, focus on what you can do now, today, like what's one thing now that I can do that will put me one step closer. So in terms of long-term, we'll have to see, but I think when you are able to win your day, you can add that into or translate that into winning your life. So day by day, being able to plan things with actionable goals, numbers, timelines, deadlines, things like that, that will help break down really daunting like dreams or hopes and kind of turn them into actionable steps to help get you there one day at a time.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that's great advice, like the one step at a time, one day at a time. We even had a comment from one of our viewers on here that it is just one day at a time, and just making that little step it feels so daunting, but once you do it, it's so rewarding. So thank you for that. Now I'd like to ask Cena a question. So as you've kind of talked about and you're aware, virtual and online networking is becoming one of the biggest topics for job seekers and professionals in general. So what advice would you give to someone who has never reached out to someone online, and how can we make a good first virtual impression?
That's super, super relevant and important right now, especially since people aren't interacting face-to-face. Virtual networking is really important when it comes to getting your personal brand out there, getting yourself out there, especially in this process of looking for a job. So some tips there for me are kind of looking beyond the typical elevator pitch. So typically there's like a traditional elevator pitch where you would basically have a very short amount of time to make a great first impression with someone you just met, especially if it's someone who you know, like their background, and it's a conversation that was like scheduled, like let's say a Zoom call with a professional or employer. Then you can do some homework and kind of get to know who they are, what their background is, where they went to school, finding that mutual ground and kind of seeing what you have in common with them. Let's say they went to the same school as you, or they were a part of a similar organization or club, or they did something that really excited you or interests you on their LinkedIn specifically. In those situations, I think it's great to find that mutual ground and find areas where you can kind of make it more personable and ask them a question or compliment them or something where it's genuine. I think it's important to kind of find a talk about them in terms of like something you have in common, whether it's school or a club, like not making anything up. So definitely just being authentic and genuine. If you find something on their LinkedIn that's interesting, just mention that when you're making your first impression, because that shows that you've done your homework and you know who they are, which is also very respectful, and it's just like a kind of a nice gesture. So then I think the traditional elevator pitch is sort of like listing a few of your skills and saying what your basically what your goal is, and kind of like selling yourself in a short amount of time. And I think restructuring that, and now that everything's so virtual, would be great to just, like San mentioned earlier, having that. I think San, you mentioned something about like how tough of a time it is now, and just being there and like supportive and being kind of like kind in your and thoughtful with your messages. So when same thing goes for conversations, when it's not like a text message or a message on LinkedIn, I think it's important to just show that you are like a person and you're talking to another person, rather than just being like, hi, I'm Cena and I'm really great at public speaking and working on resumes and LinkedIn profiles and coaching and branding and this. It's kind of like, it sounds like a bullet list, like you're reading your resume. So I think for making first impressions, just making sure that you're connecting with the other person and highlighting your skills and your experience, but in a conversation, in the form of a conversation where you're saying, I'm super passionate about, let's say I'm super passionate about brand marketing. I'm super excited because I just finished this project over a month ago where I got our brand partnered with this influencer, and we increased our social media engagement by like 8.5% or something like that. Kind of giving them a little example of what you've done or highlighting something is a way to make that first impression. Just making sure that the conversation naturally flows. And I know that can be tricky because Also, like Rachel mentioned, takes self-confidence to do a lot of these things, and it's a process. So just not being afraid of the process and breaking it down. And when you're having that conversation, just making sure that you're just showing them the real you, and also coming off as professional, but also very pleasant.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So we'll go ahead and bring it around and back to Sun. A little bit of more practical advice. What key tips would you give students and young professionals on differentiating themselves when they're networking or submitting their resumes? Because I know a lot of people might have the same skills or like have used the same online platforms that I use for social media marketing. How can I make myself any different from them?
Yeah, I'll give you one quick resume tip, and then I'll jump into some LinkedIn, my Fab 5 starter pack maybe. So for your resume, I tend to think KISS. So if you think of resume, just remember me saying keep it simple, Sun. I tell my wife KISS all the time because her name is Sherry, so keep it simple, Sherry. But when it comes to resume, still think KISS, right? Like I honestly still think one page, clean, is good. Now you can get all cutesy and colory if you're going into like design or like something else like that. But if you are applying for a traditional corporate job, just keep it basic, like name, ability to reach you, experience, education, a few bits about skills at the end. Easiest formula is kind of, you can look it up. It's like the Google XYZ bullet format. It's, increased X by Y through doing Z. That's the best way to do it. Cena, as you mentioned earlier, like that's how you talk about results. As recruiters, we already know what job descriptions are, so try to really stay away from anything that talks about what you're doing in that role. Really talk about your specific accomplishments and achievements that you've done. So that's the resume spiel, one page, keep it simple, Sun, go from there. In terms of like my 5 quick pieces of advice to really just kind of get started and brand yourself on LinkedIn. First thing is, you're going to throw your LinkedIn profile link on your resume. That would be the smart play, because you're just automatically going to send it into online. So customize your LinkedIn URL. So right now, when you create a LinkedIn account, it's going to be a combination of linkedin.com/in/ your name and a bunch of numbers and dashes and whatever. Go into your settings and change your personal URL. Mine, I don't know how I got it, but I'm super lucky. Mine is just /in/Sun, SON. So when you go and change yours, just shorten it, take away all those numbers, random letter generation, and make it some combination of your name. That makes it easy to post as part of your resume. After that, your picture. I really think a picture is necessary. You don't need to wear a suit. It really depends on your industry, what you want to be wearing. But it really should be, kind of like chest up, and try to just be you. It's pretty apparent when it's a picture of people in a group and you crop yourself out. The other thing about your picture, your profile picture here is, at LinkedIn, we try to protect your privacy. So it's automatically defaulted to not being visible to the public or to other people. So if you're open to it, I would suggest going in and opening your privacy settings and making it visible to people on LinkedIn. We've seen that people with pictures on their profile that make it public are 22 times more likely to get engaged with on the platform. So we just want to know that you're a real person, all right? After that, your headline is really important as well. That's your quick opportunity to brand yourself and to let us know who you are, what you stand for, and what you want to be. For a lot of students on here, your platform is going to say so-and-so student at so-and-so school, or it's going to have like your job title at your company. I'd say go beyond that. You've got, 120 to 200 characters to actually talk about who you are. For me, I put recruiter/advisor/consultant. That's a really quick way to understand what I do. But other people will put aspirational goals on there, right? So they may put like marketing intern, aspirational product marketing manager, or, aspiring product marketing manager. I'd really stay away from your headline doing things like looking for opportunities. Like you can do that by changing your open to work, or saying, on the platform, checking the, looking for opportunities. You don't need to put that on your headline. So really think about some bullet points that you want other people to know and go from there. After that, your summary. Your summary is your elevator pitch. That's like your paragraph that you get afterwards. I'd say 7 or 8 sentences, highlight what you're doing right now, what you want to do, and a couple ways to contact you or things that you're good at. After that, I would say job alerts. Right now, there are so many people applying for jobs that even though you're super qualified, you may not get a chance to be looked at. It's nothing personal. It's just, you know, thousands of people are in the same boat. So look at some jobs on LinkedIn, save them to your profile, or just create an alert and you'll know when jobs are posted, and it might help being the first or couple people in. So there you go. Quick rundown. Anything else?
Just to follow up on that real quick. I know a lot of people say like applying for jobs through like ZipRecruiter or Indeed can like kind of hinder your chances of being looked at. Is that the same for LinkedIn, or does it matter like?
So it's different. So from what I know with like ZipRecruiter or Indeed, it's pretty easy to start a free profile on there. On LinkedIn, most employers are paying for some form to actually post on LinkedIn. So it actually matters maybe a little bit more. Applying online can really only go so far. You know, like if you go to the company website or you apply through their LinkedIn metrics, like sometimes it does take like finding people online, finding people on LinkedIn to connect with, finding an alumnus or an alumna that went to your college, asking for referrals can also be hit or miss. But you know, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. Just, I forgot who mentioned it earlier, whether it was Rachel or Cena, but like you got to be intentional, because if you're just applying to like hundreds of jobs, it's going to weigh on you. You're wasting your time, and even though you don't take it personally, like getting rejected so many times, you're gonna kind of feel it. So just look at BQs and PQs. Okay, well, I'm here. If you look at a job description, a BQ is a basic qualification. It'll tell you the minimum requirements to be part of that job pool. If you're applying for a lot of jobs where you don't even meet BQs, it's gonna be a little bit painful. PQs are preferred qualifications. So if you meet BQs and are close in PQs, that's probably the areas that you want to look at when you're applying for jobs online.
Thank you, Son. I think that's great advice. I just have one more question about LinkedIn. So I know it's important to kind of connect with mentors, like you were saying, like possibly alumni from your college or things like that. How do you recommend people make that initial connection through LinkedIn with a mentor or someone maybe with your dream job or position? What would that first message look like?
So a little bit of it is doing your research and checking out details. So I think if someone, you know, has, let's say if they're looking at my profile and they talk about one of my past posts, or if they talk about one of my jobs, or they talk about, you know, something they saw about Notre Dame or at Columbia, you know, making 1 or 2 mentions about my personal background and how it connects with them and where they want to go is important, versus, you know, just clicking connect and then emailing me later by saying, hey, I have a question, and expecting me to say, okay, ask your question, and then going back and forth. Just be really direct with the ask, just to save as much time and save as much bandwidth as possible.
Thank you very much. That's great advice. I know it's like daunting to make that initial like moment to reach out. So I think that's really great. I think now we're ready to move on to our Q&A session. If anyone from the audience would like to submit any questions, you can go ahead and do that in the Q&A box. But we do have some questions that were pre-submitted, so I'll just start with those while we wait for the rest of the questions to come in. The first question we have is for everyone, and it is, what advice would you give to students who don't have much experience yet? Anyone that wants to start can go ahead.
I'll begin with this one just because I actually heard an answer to a question very similar to this about 2 months ago, and it kind of reframed my mindset in terms of job applications and really just pursuing something in general. I don't know if anybody's familiar with like imposter syndrome or feeling like you're not qualified. I mean, obviously you want to make sure you are meeting your BQs and your PQs on LinkedIn, but in terms of more open-ended pursuits, kind of like what I'm doing, I heard this phrase that sometimes your passion can be your qualification. So maybe you don't have the most built out resume, but if you can express your genuine interest and passion and kind of fervor for accomplishing something or getting involved with a program or an organization or company, whatever it may be, I think that can really set you aside from like going the more like, oh, I need a job. It's more like, oh, I want to pursue this position or become this or create or contribute in this way.
Yeah, I think if no one else has any input, that's definitely great advice, Rachel. And we actually have another question that probably is more geared towards you, Rachel, but if Sun or Cena, if you have input, that'd be great. So someone asked, what are the legalities of working under a pen name when creating an online personality or brand, and then applying those experiences to your resume? Navigate that.
So I think, well, it's kind of a multifaceted question because I'm going to just be completely transparent here. I am very new to this industry, so I don't know about the legalities behind a pen name. So technically, I've been using the name Rachel Mckenna. This is not my full legal name, but I've been using that in a creative space since I was a kid. I used to model, so that was like my modeling name. That's how I signed up through the industry. I think that's how I filed my taxes through it. I mean, I was like 10, so I can't talk about my taxes back then. But I do know that like having a consistent name that, say you want to go into the creative space, I'm just going to speak to that because that's kind of what I know right now. Having a consistent image is really important, and you won't necessarily be using a resume in the creative space. You might instead have something called a one sheet, which is like kind of a comprehensive overlook of your followers and your engagement rates and maybe like conversions of products you might have endorsed or things like that. So it's kind of a different side of pitching yourself or showing your experience. So in terms of the legalities, I'm not sure. I feel like that might be specific according to what you're trying to do, where you're using the name, and what you hope your brand, I guess, symbolizes and how you fit in with that.
Yeah, and to go off of what Rachel said, for me personally, when I started Cena Hodgeson career coaching, I was trying to come up with a brand name for the business where it related to me and what I was doing, but also was maybe memorable or easy or like, I don't know, I was trying to come up with what to call my business. And I really, in my gut, I couldn't feel any sort of connection with branding it with like some cool name or like giving it a brand name that's not my own name, because I felt like for this business specifically, what I'm doing your coach, I felt like I am my brand and I am interacting with my clients from a person to person. So it's like I feel like if it was like a name for me, it just didn't feel right. I feel like I'm more of a personable person, so I like to take that personal approach. So that's why I named the business, like I use my legal name for my business. In terms of legalities, so I don't have like legal advice to give to anyone because I'm not in that industry, like I'm not a lawyer, but I have a lawyer in my network who I actually asked about this. I asked him a similar question and I was like, can I use, if I use my legal name for my business, in terms of taxes and business licenses and things like that, is that okay? Do I need to trademark it? Is that like an issue? Like what's the situation? Basically, he told me for my situation that in my business, that because it's my legal name, Cena Hodgeson Career Coaching, no one else would really be like stealing that from me. No one would be taking it. So I don't necessarily need to trademark the business name. So that was helpful, but there's a lot of information, I think, on LegalZoom and online and the Small Business Bureau website online too. So a lot of great info there.
Awesome. Okay, so we have another question. This is for Sun. We saw your academic background. Do you think the school we attended for college or the highest degree we have has an impact on our career outlook? Like, what should we think about after our undergraduate? Do we need to go back for our master's?
No, I don't think you do. I will say the first thing about school, okay, you know what, sure, it matters a little bit, but the more important thing is not necessarily where you start, it's where you finish. Like, for example, at LinkedIn, I like to think is one of the top employers of choice out there. we made this conscious decision a few years ago to emphasize skills over schools. So the program that I lead, where we hire, let's say 75 sales trainees in the United States each year, of those 75, I was able to hire from 50 different schools, 50, right? So some people get worked up about, oh, am I a core school? Am I a targeted school? Find the right organization, they might not care. And again, Apple's a great place, but they have the school model. So let's say they might have 100 hires, but it might be out of like 6 schools, right? So just, don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be worried about any shortcomings. Like, don't sell yourself short. It's really about how you continue to build yourself up. And only go to grad school if you really like the subject. Like, don't go and get an MBA or a JD just because you think it's going to lead somewhere.
That's great advice, son. Thank you for that. I know, like, at least myself and a lot of recent graduates, it's always, oh, should I go back to school? Do I look for a job right now? Do I need to go back to school if I don't know what I want to do for a job? It's like this back and forth dialogue in your head. So that's really great advice on kind of how to narrow down your vision and figure out what's right for you. So thank you for that.
Of course. I think to Rachel's point earlier, like, finding a grad school or grad program that you're passionate about is more important, just because a lot of times, especially if you're going for an MBA straight out of university, you actually don't have that work experience, and it's probably going to hurt you. A lot of people think, I'm going to get a master's or an MBA straight out of undergrad. It's going to be awesome. And then a lot of people think they have an MBA, so they want to get paid more, but companies are like, you don't have that 3, 4, 5 years of experience before MBA. So it's a pretty mixed bag. So just do it because you want to.
Thank you. Now, I know we only have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to ask if our 3 panelists, if you could leave us with like one sentence of advice or like some quick words, what would you want everyone to take away from this panel, and just kind of some advice for the future? Rachel, do you want to start?
Sure. I was trying to like think about one thing. I've been reading a lot recently and educating myself in a lot of different ways that school didn't. And there's been a lot of like self-development in the midst of that, because I mean, I don't know how many recent college grads are here, or people that are finishing out college, but you are kind of immersed in this like echo chamber of very specific thinking and like how to deal with your classes and time management in terms of how school wants you to do that, or how, university or your job might require you to be doing those things. But taking the time to connect with yourself and gain some perspective in terms of who you are, what your core values are, the impact you want to leave, and how you would like to serve other people. That's been one of the biggest things that's kind of propelled me forward in finding the courage to kind of overcome my own fears and doubts and trying to build up the confidence to pursue this insane route that I've chosen to take. But it's finding purpose and how you can help others and think outside of yourself, and kind of just continue to give yourself perspective and continue to educate yourself, both in terms of the important things and things that will make you happy and bring you closer to your genuine inner purpose.
Thank you, Rachel. What about you, Cena? Do you have like a few words, like a sentence of advice to leave us with?
Definitely. So way before I became a career coach, I was actually on a Zoom call similar to this, where I signed up for a life coaching course, and that was really helpful. So first thing there is just yourself in various ways, whether it's in your personal life, professional life, academic life, just absorbing a lot of information, whatever interests you, like we've been saying, whatever your passion is, just learn as much as you can, and that's going to help you and give you that experience and help you personally in your life. But in that, one of those Zoom calls during that life coaching course, something was said that really stayed like on my mind since then, and I wanted to share that with everyone. So the word doubt, think about the word doubt, has the word do in it. In the first 2 letters, it's D-O. So when you think about all of your doubts, insecurities, and like that self-confidence we were talking about throughout the Zoom call, just remember that doubt has a word do in it, and just believe in yourself. Don't worry about any fear. Let go of the fear, because it's all in your mind and it's not really being seen by other people unless you show it to them. So as long as you can stand your ground and be powerful and just continue to, like Rachel said, work on yourself so you have that background confidence. Unless you're already a confident person, just make sure that you're checking your doubts, because everyone here on this call, in my opinion, is already taking a great step by coming to listen to us and coming and asking questions, because that's you showing up for yourself. So I'm really proud of everyone for being here. And I just want to say that, and also mention to take time to practice self-care, especially right now, and just enjoy life as well. Like, work hard, play hard, and feel free to stay in touch with me on LinkedIn or my career coaching website, which I believe Jasmine has both of those links. So feel free to say hello and let me know how I can help you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Cena, for those powerful words. Sun, would you like to leave us with a few words?
Yeah, I would say, as you approach your career in your life, be intentional. Like, take your time to really be good at something. There aren't any shortcuts. It's just tough. I think we all have our own vision for where we want to go, and it takes time. Like, I always try to, tell the young bloods out there, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So, yeah, go do that.
Thank you. All right, it looks like we're a little bit over, but thank you all for joining us today. We hope you all learned something new and have been inspired to take the next steps toward building your dream career pathway despite everything that's been happening recently. We've added everybody's contact information if you'd like to follow up on any of the topics we share. And you can go ahead and screenshot that, take a picture with your phone if you'd like. And before we go, Megan?
Yes, I just have a quick thing to say. I would like for everyone watching, if you could please take a short survey that will really help us improve our future events and webinars. After you leave the call, a link to our webinar survey should pop up on the screen, but just in case, we'll leave the link on the screen for a few seconds right now so you can open it up on your phone. You can also scan with the barcode right there. But yeah, that's everything I have to say. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us here today. And thank you very much to our amazing panelists. I know I learned so much, so thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with us. But that's everything that I have, and please stay tuned for our next webinar, which will be in November.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.